What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle. We are back with some Darkest Dungeon 2. This time, we are going to go over the PC Gamer article that came out today. So we have some screenshots, and I'm not going to show the entire article from front to back, but I will talk about the important bits, the gameplay changes, the heroes and stuff, and I will show some of the screenshots. We're going to try something different to make my life a bit easier and to make it look a little nicer. I went and got a very generic Google Slides background, one of the first templates you can grab. I grabbed that thing and I made a quick little 10 piece thing, or like 9 piece, I can't remember. And then at the end I'll talk about the screenshots, and don't worry if you can't see the screenshots in this. I will show them later and like blow them up with editing so you can see those. And let's see, obviously before we get started, gotta plug the stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, Patreon, Twitch, all that stuff. I'm sure a lot of you are going to be new, so if you want to get the news as fast as almost anyone, thanks to Pepper for getting this out like five hours before. But anyway, if you want to get that, then definitely follow along on the channel. Alright, so yes, Darkest Dungeon 2, the review. So, the description. Barassa said this was going to be some kind of cross between it being an official roguelike, which means that you have runs that are randomized for a lot of it, and then it ends, and then it's just over. And unlike Darkest Dungeon 1, where you can get a set amount of trinkets, you have to beat a set amount of bosses, or do the endgame missions and stuff to finish the game. This is a kind of like a Slay the Spire, or Hades, or all those types of traditional roguelikes, Isaac, for instance, where there's a lot of variance and it changes each time, so you have different runs every time you play. I think that's pretty cool. They wanted to make these 5 hours in length. I think once we understand the game a bit better, it's probably going to go down to like 3.5 or 4 hours. I think 5 might be the average they're doing in the studio. I don't know, but I wouldn't expect it to be 5 hours the entire time. Some might be 7, some might be 5, some might be 3. Who knows? But they wanted the first game to matter still. They didn't want to make a 1.5. Chris actually tweeted this out like before I started recording, that they could have just made sequel 1.5. I'm looking at you, Destiny 2, aka Destiny 1.5, and they decided not to do that. They went a different direction. So the first game is going to be a grindy, long campaign of, I think they said, cleaning up your backyard. And then this one is going to be hopefully saving the world, or trying to be a little more hopeful. That's one of the things they wanted to emphasize. There's the quotable line of Chris saying they want more people to feel worse, but something they did say repeatedly in the article is they wanted it to have some actual hopeful upbringing tones at certain points, and I think the word they used was nobility. That's why I quoted it. They wanted it to have some kind of nobility feeling with what you're doing. I think that's pretty cool. So like I said before, it's got similarities to Slay the Spire, Hades. Those were mentioned explicitly. And Slay the Spire, if you haven't played it, it's a card game, deck builder, roguelike. And when you're going up the tower, you pick your path going through the tower. And I'm very certain that's how this game is going to play. It's going to have regions that can spawn, and you pick your way through the regions. Sometimes the regions themselves, you're going to have different nodes to go through, where they could be battles, they could be events, they could be talking to NPCs or whatever. Or I'm thinking you could probably pick the regions you go to. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you go through, you know, region A, and then it splits into region B and then region C, and you can do what you want there. So that's really cool. Let's see. Yeah, so I said branching paths, and then, every region is going to have a proper dungeon with an actual area boss, and it's supposed to have better loot. I'm curious what they do with the bosses. I don't know if it's going to be static dungeons or not, but it does sound pretty cool. Moving on to gameplay changes, they said trinkets are going to be stronger, and they wanted to change them from being just flat stat increases to other stuff. I think we're going to talk about those more later, which is pretty cool. This isn't quite a gameplay change, it's more like a gameplay continuity thing. There will still be permadeath. They were very explicit in saying they wanted you to be able to lose people, finish the game with 1 or 2 heroes. That wouldn't be a bad thing. One of the things that... So, afflictions. I was jumping ahead here. Afflictions are gone. Stress looks like it's a little bit different in how it functions, so it'll be interesting to see what they did with it. But instead of afflictions, we now have an affinity system. So affinity is, since you pick 4 characters, don't know if I got to that part yet. Did I forget that? I did. Maybe I did. Anyway, you get to pick 4 characters, and you get those 4 characters the entire run. You keep them for the whole start to finish, and they want the idea there for relationships between the characters. So as you're going through the game, you do events, you go through regions, you beat bosses and stuff. They want the heroes to interact with each other, and I love this idea. I think this is probably one of the things that has me the most excited. So there are all kinds of big interactions that happen between them, small interactions. I think one of them was, if Grave Robber's dying and Plague Doctor heals someone else, Grave Robber might not like that. I thought that was pretty cool. There are things like when you get to a crossroads, all 4 of them are going to say we should go this way or that way, and you get to pick between them. I'm sure when you do that, one person's going to be upset, the other might not care. So you're always going to be pissing someone off through the entire journey. We have things like Highwayman may want to rob people, and Man-at-Arms may want to help them. This is another example of dev bias, because with Highwayman, as always, he gets everything he wants, and in this game, he's on the highway for the entire time. So he's, in fact, a highwayman the entire game. Like, we're not in a mausoleum the whole time robbing graves, so what's up with that? No grave robber bias ever. Sadness. Oh yeah, and quirks come back and they influence relationship interaction. Part 2 of the gameplay changes. Like I said, there are no afflictions, there are no heart attacks per se, but there are meltdowns is the word they use. They called it specifically meltdowns. I don't know if it's going to be that in-game as the mechanic, but these replace heart attacks. Meltdowns do a few things. They put you down to death's door right away, very close to a heart attack. That's what it did in the other game, is it just dropped you to 0 HP when it happened. And the interesting thing is it resets all of your relationships between, I guess, that hero and everyone else, which is cool because on the one hand, you can lose your really good relationships, which are going to have benefits and I'm assuming buffs and stuff like that. But if you have some bad relationships, it sounds like it gets rid of those as well. So being able to get rid of negative relationships, like have a tactical way to reset them. If you have like 4 bad or 3 bad relationships and then 1 good one that's like okay, and the 3 that are bad are actually really bad, you can get rid of those. I like that idea. Inns are going to replace camping, so there's no camping, but you go, like each region I think has an inn. One of the screenshots has a distance tracker to the inn. My fear with the inns is I don't want the game to feel like it's just kind of like Souls in that way, where it's just moving from bonfire to bonfire, and instead we're going to go from inn to inn. I don't really like that, but who knows, it may play just fine. It's just a little point. I guess that's probably me that is being nitpicky about it. And affinities can be tinkered with at inns, so they can play games together or share alcohol and stuff. I think that's pretty cool. Animations are updated for battles. The way they described it in the article was that if you click Wicked Slice, which means I think Wicked Slice is coming back, you click Wicked Slice, Highwayman like brings his dagger out and gets it ready. So while you're waiting and thinking about it, he probably just like, spins it in his hand or something, which I think would be really awesome. The other one they talked about was if you try to heal someone, they'll grab a potion out of their bag. I'm assuming this is going to be Plague Doctor. We're going to talk about Plague Doctor later. But I like this. It makes the game feel more like more is going on, where they're just literally not waiting and staring at you, wanting you to press the buttons as they do in Darkest Dungeon 1. So I think this is a nice change. I'm eager to see what they do. Okay, more mechanics. The one they show a few different screenshots of is you get to drive the stagecoach, and that's awesome. They said you can't drift in it, and I think that's the first thing modders need to get to work on, is you need to change the physics in the game. Let us Kansai drift or whatever in the stagecoach, please. That is my hope and dream. The next major, huge, gargantuan change is that accuracy is gone. They said there's no accuracy in dodge, but there are dodge tokens, which is why I didn't say the dodge is gone entirely. It feels like there's some way to manipulate not getting hit, but there's no accuracy. And one of the reasons they cited was that as they went through the years of balancing DD1, they said that they had to keep manipulating accuracy or adding more sources of it because people just really hated missing. I guess that's carryover from XCOM and other games like that where you hate missing. I'm looking at you, Battle Brothers. I hate missing in that game too. So accuracy's gone. That's pretty interesting. Which means they have to focus more on other mechanics like dodge and block, and I guess guard if that makes a comeback. So I'm really curious what they do with that. The next thing I got wrong in my predictions video, or I might have said it as like a desired change, where I wanted you to be able to upgrade weapons and armor more like robustly. I don't want to use that word, everyone's using that word now, but that's like the apt word here. They said you can't upgrade your weapons and armor, you just get trinkets, so that's interesting. I kind of like that. Like I would rather have more RPG elements, but we get the affinity system, so I like that. And if it's a 5-hour run, who really needs to sit there and go to a blacksmith in town and spend 20 minutes figuring out a way to upgrade your armor and weapon? I think this is more for a speed of play type of thing, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's why it's gone. They said that they wanted battles to feel more like you're solving puzzles and not just trading hits. I like this a lot because in DD1 it really does feel like you're just trading hits with the enemy, and sometimes you stun them because you don't want to trade hits, and then you have recovery moves because you're trading hits. So having other mechanics to work around, like that's what made guard and stealth and stuff interesting. Stealth was kind of implemented not well in the first game. Like it's still interesting but not well done, I think. And having stealth and guard and stuff like that, using mechanics to break other mechanics to win fights, that is very fun. But there are too many things in Darkest Dungeon 1 that just hit you in the face, and everything requires that you hit them in the face. So I would like it if that changed, and it sounds like it is. Tokens. So there are a lot of things with tokens. I don't think I wrote them down, but they're... Okay, so the tokens are the mechanics now. So instead of having like buffs, debuffs, and whatever, we have tokens, which they're just little markers on the characters. That kind of gives it a board game feel, which makes sense because I believe Mr. Sigmund said that he greatly enjoys board games. So I'm not surprised that they have board game type of mechanics. But the tokens represent a lot of things. There are block tokens, there I think are crit tokens, there are combo tokens, there are dodge tokens, there are blind tokens, there are tokens for everything you can think of. Combo tokens, we'll talk about in a minute. Blind tokens, kind of self-explanatory. So there's no accuracy, but you have a blind token, which probably just makes it so your next attack whiffs, or 50% chance to hit, I don't know. But RNG is totally still here in some way or form, but tokens are pretty awesome. The next change that I like quite a bit is there's a time bar. We saw this before the article even officially came out. They had it like in the top corner of one of the 2 pages they showed us, and I am a big fan of this because this way we can plan around what's happening with our characters. We don't go, well, depending on if Vestal high roll speed depends on what I'm doing this turn. So it's nice that that kind of stuff is changing. I wonder if it shows the enemies too. I think the time bar right now just shows allies, but it'd be nice if it showed enemies as well. So planning ahead, always good, especially having more information in turn-based games is always welcomed. So as I was saying before, trinkets are the only things you can put on. Obviously they're random drops, they just pop up anywhere, but they're saying that they have a lot of faction or enemy specific trinkets. Like this trinket comes from the cultists. So every time you want to, or if you're looking for certain things where you go, okay, I have these characters, my occultist probably wants this cultist trinket, I'm going to run through the cultist dungeon and see if I get it. And I like that a lot. I think that's a very smart thing to do. They were talking also about trinkets not doing the things that they did before, where they were just like positive or negative stat increases, and their trade-offs like minus speed or plus stress and stuff. One of the examples that was given was they do interesting things like you start every round with 2 block tokens. That'd be pretty cool, especially for some of your tanks, or if you want to protect some squishy heroes, I don't know. They also said that they'll have synergy with other hero skills, which, not surprising, but I think they're not giving us the full like scope on this. I think the way they redesigned the mechanics with stress and affinity and all that, like you can have trinkets that give you, you know, plus 5%, I don't know, damage if you have affinity with like positive affinity with 2 other heroes, stuff like that. The other one that I'm really expecting to see, I don't know if this will be a thing, but when I was looking at the screenshots, you see the health bars and then you have stress bars under it. the stress bars are only 5 blocks and they're not 10, and they go halfway up the health bar. I don't know if this is like early footage and they just didn't stretch it out across the screen or whatever, but I would not be surprised if, with how afflictions and stuff are reworking, if some of the trinkets didn't do things like increase or decrease your stress capacity. Because in DD1 we have things that increase your max HP, but what if there are things that increase and decrease your max stress by, 1 or 2 blocks? That'd be pretty cool. So I'm wondering if they're going to do something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but that is my early prediction. It sounds like they wanted to lower the overall RNG of the game, but it still exists in several capacities. One of the quotes they gave for the affinity system was, "What if they hate each other and don't do what you say?" If that has a percentage chance to ignore your commands, there's some RNG. The other RNG that's going to happen is it sounds like enemies get death blow resist. I don't know if it's bosses only or if it's every single enemy, but for instance, Grave Robber has a move that ignores 20% of death blow. Perhaps Butcher Circus was the warm-up. I don't know, but that is something to keep an eye out for. When they're talking about skills, in the first game we could use 4 out of 7 skills. This time it's 5 out of 11, so it's kind of the same, almost the same ratio in terms of percentage, but just more choices overall, and I think that's interesting. So I don't know if that's going to tone down some other moves comparatively, or make them all strong and then just make really hard choices. I know in DD1 there are a lot of characters like Flagellant or sometimes Man-at-Arms that really have this condition we call 5 move slot syndrome, because they have 4 moves you usually want to take, and then there's like a 5th one you go, man, I really just want to slot this on, but I have to drop something else that's really, really good. So hopefully this makes builds a bit easier to make and we don't have to leave too many trade-offs. This also lets things that are usually weaker, like Toxin Trickery, which is now Absinthe, to be slotted in easier, because it's like I don't have to trade my really good damage moves or lunge or shadow fade. I can run Trickery, it's fine. So we'll see what happens there. But when they're talking about skills also, they said that they can be swapped between road encounters, so between, I guess, events that are happening. I really don't like this. This is something I wish they didn't do, but I understand that you need to have flexibility in these types of runs. Like, if I think about something like Slay the Spire, if I want to get rid of a card in my deck, I have to pay something. I have to either get to an event and do the event successfully, or I have to go to a shop and I have to pay gold to get rid of the card. And that kind of, I mean, this isn't a card game, so I understand why it's not the same way, but being able to just switch stuff randomly whenever you please feels not satisfying to me, but I could be wrong. It might just be a good thing to do, and yeah, I guess we'll see what happens there. Don't worry, like I said, don't worry about the screenshots. You will see them in bigger detail later. So for the heroes, they said there are no more quad squads. You can't run 4 of each hero. You can't run multiples. The reason is that it's just too hard to balance, and that's fine. I understand. So rip in peace, Rot Squad. So we get 1 of each hero per run. You get to pick 4 at the start. You keep those 4 for the entire time. As far as the heroes themselves go, Grave Robber, in terms of her kit, looks very similar. Like, the models themselves got updated, and there's some back and forth. People say that they don't like the new art. I'm liking it more the more I see it, and I want to see it in motion, and I think once we see it in motion, it's going to look really good. Some of the in-combat stuff doesn't look, like, great. It looks a little funky, but outside of combat so far, like, the world and the cart, like the stagecoach, looks awesome. So I think that if that part of the game can look amazing, I think the heroes themselves, once they're moving and doing stuff, and we have the new close-ups and all that, I think it's going to look fantastic. So with Grave Robber, going back to our heroes here, she looks very similar to how she played before. I wouldn't be surprised if she can dance around the team and stuff, but she has some of her hotbar skills were like throwing daggers, and then it looked like she had flashing daggers as well. I can't quite say for sure what all the moves are. She had pick on one of them, so pick to the face was one of the buttons, or it was a pickaxe attack, and she has it in the screenshot that I'm staring at. But the things I can tell you for Grave Robber, because they show a couple of the skills for these heroes, is Absinthe is the new Toxin Trickery. It restores a quarter of your life if you're under a quarter, so you can't ever heal past half. And I guess that's because healing is supposed to be harder to do, so it has to be a very low conditional heal, which I understand, but also says that she gets a speed token, and then she gets 3 dodge tokens afterwards. So we'll see how Absinthe plays out. I can't really see... I guess there are situations where you'd use that, like to get off Death's Door and defend yourself and stuff, but who knows. She has another move called Glint in the Dark, which ignores enemy stealth and 20% of their death blow resist. So this is what I was talking about before. Enemies have death blow. Sounds like Grave Robber's gonna be able to punch through it just like she did in Circus. Leper is kind of... he's like... the characters we've seen are kind of the same roles. They have a little bit of differences here, but Leper, he's... you could say he was a tank before, but he couldn't guard. He could just draw fire with Withstand by marking himself, and I think Intimidate marked as well. So I understand that. But he was kind of described as a taunt tank, bruiser type. He has Intimidate, which puts a weaken token on the enemy, and then it taunts him into attacking him. And that has synergy with his other move called Ruin. So as he takes more and more damage, or I guess more hits, I'm not sure if it's a per damage thing or per hit thing, he stacks more damage on top of it, and that lets him, I guess, power up and return fire. So that's pretty awesome. Highwayman, they didn't say how he plays. Like, Highwayman's description was the most generic, vague thing ever. It said he has a pistol and a knife. You don't want to get into a fight with him. Everyone else, they explained what was happening with them, and Highwayman, they're just like, he stabs and shoots. So, more depth bias, I'm kidding. So the 2 attacks we do, actually we know he has 3 attacks. So he has Highway Robbery, which in this screenshot here, it says it destroys enemy tokens, the positive enemy tokens. So if the enemy puts like block tokens on themselves, he's gonna get rid of them. I don't know if he takes them for himself, but it says destroys, but that's kind of cool. So Highwayman gets some utility. So I guess that's to put the thumb in the eye of all the people from DD1 that said he's just a damage dealer. Well, now he does other stuff. Point Blank Shot, it says that this move sets a combo token for a team-up attack on the front rank person. I'm thinking that if we don't see any Mark-style gameplay, I'm pretty sure Mark can be remade as combo tokens. So the person that does the Mark sets a combo token on that target, and then you team up on it or get boosted damage and stuff. So I'm really eager to see what happens there. I think it's pretty cool. Wicked Slice was confirmed by name. Barassa actually used the words Wicked Slice, and I think it's in one of the screenshots. I'll take a sip of water here. Man-at-Arms. Did I put 2 spaces there? Oh my goodness, that's driving me nuts. Anyway, Man-at-Arms gives allies block tokens. They said the reason for this is healing is a rare treat. So I like the idea of the block tokens and mitigation and stuff, because this way we're not as dependent on raw output healing like Vestal. I think this is a very intelligent way to counteract that, especially stuns, where it's like, I don't have to stun every turn if I'm taking half damage from stuff, so that's fine. I think he still has Rampart, because one of the screenshots is him hitting an enemy with his shield, but we'll see what happens there. I don't know if he still has guard and stuff or the buffs, but that is Man-at-Arms. Hellion, they explicitly said she can hit back row enemies. That's really no surprise. She did that before because she has a long weapon, so I guess she's gonna be our reach type person. Jester, it said he can bleed enemies and buff friends, but they didn't explain what the buffs were. With no accuracy stat, and depending on how speed and crit work, I guess he could just drop tokens on your team, but I don't know if Ballad is going to be coming back, or be in the same like nature of power level that it was before. But Jester bleeds and does buffs. Alright. Plague Doctor, she can blade enemies. The important thing they said a couple times in the interview is that she can heal. So it sounds like by potions, so via potions, that Plague Doctor is the new healer. I wish it wasn't so, but if they nerf her stuns or get rid of her stuns or whatever, then I guess it makes sense that Plague Doctor is a healer. She throws out healing potions. Healing potions are also consumable, it looks like, so I'll show you those in a minute. But Plague Doctor, pretty much the same, sits on the back, does stuff like Blight and supports. Occultist, they said he has high crit chance and he's strong against Eldritch enemies. This is exactly what he did in the first game. No surprise there. One of the screenshots has his hotbar, so we can actually look at what he has to try and guess what he can do. So one of the buttons is Sacrificial Stab, it looks like. It's even the same direction, almost the same graphic. The other one is Abyssal Artillery, looks like Roof Spaghetti, same button. The third one that's lit up, we're not sure if this is a buff or some kind of hex or curse, but I'm not sure what that is. The fourth button, it took a sec, but that is definitely weird reconstruction, or at least I should say it looks like. I guess I shouldn't talk in uncertainties, but it looks like reconstruction, so I wouldn't be surprised if he still has that heal. I'm sure it's a little tougher to use. And then Daemon's Pull is the fifth button that he has. It looks the exact same as before. And the interesting thing is this screenshot is from a cultist in the back of the party, so rank 4. So it makes sense that he can't use the sacrificial stat, but he can't use the other stuff too. And I'm wondering what's like up with that. So if rank restrictions are more restricting this time, that'll be interesting. And then finally they gave us a silhouette of the 9th hero, so I guess there's gonna be a new hero in the early access, but they didn't tell us anything about who it is. The author assumed it was some kind of frontliner, but there are already a lot of frontliners in the base cast here. So we have Leper, we have Man-at-Arms, Highwayman can be up front, Grave Robber can be up front, and Occultist is a frontliner, Fight Me. So I don't know, God, is there anyone else? Who are the backliners? PD? I can't remember who went in the game right now. So, oh, Hellion. See, Hellion's another frontliner, Jester is kind of a mid-range. So, I don't know. I feel like we don't have enough backline people, to be honest, but whatever. Okay, final bit of info here. It says that it releases in Q3 of this year, which is July 1st to September 30th. So, one of the running theories that I think Nick put up, and I like it a lot, is he said that, I believe, Crimson Court and Color of Madness came out on July 17th, which is Wayne June's birthday. So, are they going to do it again? Who knows? But if they're willing to show some screenshots and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting this. I don't know. I mean, we're set to get this soon. I'm going to say August, honestly. I would like it to be July. I would honestly like it to be July. And I'm going to be upset if it's like September 22nd. Please don't do that to us. But when they said the game comes out, you'll be able to beat the game. So you can climb the mountain at the end of the game and win. There's no under construction sign, as the article put it, and the mountain climb is the finale. Some of the screenshots have the mountain in the back, so you're always heading that way. The story was described to have 5 acts, and the only act you're going to see in the first one, or in early access, is the first act. So over time, they're going to add more to the story, and the way it's supposed to be is that the more you beat the story and the more things you do in the game, it unlocks more pieces of the story, and you can figure it out that way. The final screenshot I have right here is this picture of a guy that we're assuming is the heir, which I'm surprised they gave the heir a face, because the heir in the first game was faceless. It's assumed to be the player, but this could just be anyone. So, I don't know. And I'm going to take a sec here to drink some water, and then we'll talk about the screenshots. The torch meter isn't so much what it was in the first game, it looks like. It's more of a momentum and morale type of thing. So helping people and winning fights gives you torch. I'm assuming there might be some kind of item that gives you torch at some point as well. But just looking at the screenshots with the cart looks fantastic. And in the bottom corner, like the bottom left corner, you can always see some kind of objective. So sometimes I think this has been like 76 leagues to the inn was one of them. And then another is avoid the hospital. Some of the other ones are like keep the torch over 60. So I'm not quite sure what something like avoid the hospital means. Like, is the hospital overrun in this scenario? I don't know. Also in the top left corner of pretty much all the cart screenshots, you see the number of battles that are there. I think they want you to suppress the battles and get rid of as many as you can before leaving the area, just to make the area safe. In the battle shot that I got the Occultist hotbar from, we have some pretty cool stuff going on. We have Leper looking like an absolute massive unit, ready to obliterate everything in front of him. I love how Leper looks. It's so awesome. But I'm looking at this picture and I see Jester. Jester either has a blind quote token or just some kind of blind debuff, it looks like. And then we also have evidence of a secondary damage over time effect, which we're thinking is burning because it's a little fire symbol. We have burning in this picture with Jester. There's also another picture of the cultist that has the same thing. So I'm assuming that burning attacks are a thing. I really doubt that it might be something like, I don't know, a heat gauge where they're just heating up and regenerating. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's damage over time, and it looks like burning. The same picture, we have enemies we're pretty familiar with. This looks like a very stock Darkest Dungeon type of fight. We have 2 frontline cultist people. We have some backline cultist people. We have like a support one in the very far back. That looks like some kind of caster. The time bar is obvious up in the top right, but it doesn't show enemy turns, so I don't know what that is about, but I would like to be able to see enemy turns weaved in there just so I know what's going on. But again, this is a screenshot from the demo that they presented, so I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't have every single thing yet. The Caretaker is joining us again. This time he's called the Hoarder, which I guess is some kind of collector reference because, as Thick pointed out, he has what looks like a collector throwback on his backpack. It looks like Collector's head in a jar, which is pretty funny. And the Hoarder is the merchant for the game, and so I'm assuming he follows us around, or we just randomly meet him at towns, but he looks like the Caretaker, so why wouldn't he follow us? The picture of the shop is interesting. So the things I can see right away is that laudanum is still a consumable. It looks like there's anti-venom. It looks like there are healing pots. I see food. I see a couple things I can't identify. There's some kind of weird crystal candle thing, kind of like a cultist. There are a few boxes. Like, is that to transport stuff? I think I see medicinal herbs. And then there's some powders and flowers or fungus. I really don't know what the rest of the stuff is. And I think a holy water. I don't know. These are just things that I'm noticing. And also of interest in the shop screen is your inventory looks like it's 20 slots. I think it's pretty close to that in the first game. It might be like 16. I can't remember. And then at the bottom of that, I see 3 different types of what look like coins. So do we have 3 different types of currency? Is this like a regular tabletop kind of game where we have like gold, silver, platinum? I don't know, but I'm interested to see what they are. Actually, one final note, these could be tokens, but I don't know why they'd be down there and why you'd purchase tokens like that. That seems weird, but that's another thing to think about. Actually, I do have one more thing to say here. The top of the Hoarder screen, we have what looks like weapons and armor. I'm assuming those are trinkets. I don't know why, if they said we can't upgrade weapons and armor, if we could buy weapons and armor, that'd be kind of a bait and switch. Then we have a middle symbol, I can't tell what it is. Then we have rings, and then we have wagon parts. I forgot to mention this. The wagon, the stagecoach, can be upgraded. You can get the 3 examples they give us is you can get a crow's nest, which increases scouting. You can get medical supplies, which increases passive healing while on the road. Very exactly the same as in Battle Brothers, where when you travel around, you do passive healing. And then the 5th or the 3rd thing was wind chimes, so your characters can heal stress as they ride around. Very cool. I'm definitely sure there will be more than these 3 things to do with the wagon. The other mechanics that they mentioned that I forgot to cover in the other part of the video is they mentioned immobilize, bleed, blight as resistances, block, blind, stun, burning, which we talked about, deathblow resist is also on monsters, pull for occultists, which indicates that push is probably a mechanic, taunt, weaken, crit tokens, speed tokens, dodge tokens, stealth. There's a trap icon in one of the shots, and then combo tokens. The final point that I'll make here is from the screenshots, the wagon play just looks fun. It looks like you get to ride around, do stuff, and that's pretty awesome. The enemies that are in the screenshots, we've seen cultists, we've seen undead, and there's one shot of what looks like a bandit or a brigand, and it's man-at-arms hitting him in the face, assuming it's ramparts. So those are at least 3 types of enemies that we know of. And these are just the humans and the base, like, monster types of enemies. So we don't know what kind of eldritch monsters are out there. We don't know what other crazy stuff. Like, is there a Warrens with more pig people? I have no idea at all, but I cannot tell you how excited I am, and I cannot wait for more info, and I can't wait to make more content for this. So if you want to read the full article for yourself, like I said, I cut out a lot of the speaking parts. There are like several pages of just text where there's a couple pictures, but it's mostly text, and they're just talking and explaining what they're thinking about, and it's a very enjoyable read. So if you can, get your hands on this. It's in PC Gamer. I know you can get it on like electronic mediums and stuff like that. I tried to find it in stores, and I know that people are posting pictures all over the place, but that's something else. And that's it for this video. So thanks for watching. Next time, in terms of Darkest Dungeon 2, whenever there's more news, I will come back and talk about it. So I appreciate y'all hanging out, listening to me chatter for a while, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that if you're interested in following along, you join Discord, subscribe, come watch me on Twitch, all that awesome stuff. I think you're fantastic, and as always, like I said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.